Bishop Gaiters, your show here on Tuesdays on Crowdsource the Truth has become one of the most anticipated and popular shows we've got. How are you today, Bishop?
I am doing great, Jason, and really looking forward to beginning this brand new mini-series concerning Barack Obama being the paradigm of Saudi Arabia and at the same time being the paralysis of America.
Yeah. Now, what do you mean by the paradigm in this case? We're going to find out, of course, as we go in depth, but I'm intrigued by that.
Absolutely. Well, in prayer last night, man of God, I was seeking the mind of God, and I felt the leading of the mind of God to choose this specific topic, more specifically in the term paradigm, which means the direct reflection or the direct replication of the reflection of its origin. And so in this three-part series concerning Barack Obama being that paradigm, that reflection as a Saudi plant, because that's what he was, planted within American power in order to weaken the United States of America to become a caliphate in the Western Hemisphere. And so thereby, that's why we're going to unpack today Barack Obama, the paradigm of Saudi Arabia. But because of that paradigm, he became a political paralysis of America to this day. And so that needs to be talked about today.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be very intrigued to hear the details that you bring up because other than that photograph that we suspect to be of Barack Obama and al-Walid, I don't know too much about Barack Obama's connections to Saudi Arabia. And I even recall that there was a dust-up when Obama was president that he somehow had disrespected the king of Saudi Arabia or he wouldn't bow. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it seems like there's probably, and I'm sure you know more about this than I do, but it seems like there's a lot of fighting within the Saudi Arabian royal family.
And there is too, Jason. And the founding father of the modern day kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it being Saud through the backing of the Rothschild dynasty, through British MI6 and the Western powers, had helped Ibn Saud to create the modern day kingdom of Saudi Arabia, along with the Rockefeller family through John D. Rockefeller controlling the oil interest that was created. So the petroleum, the oil was discovered by the Standard Oil Company of California in Saudi Arabia in 1930, which also led to the creation of the modern day Saudi Arabia, which is also called the Third Saudi State, in connection to Barack Obama in the capital subsidizing, financially supporting Black politicians to this day with Saudi Arabian money. So that needs to be talked about today.
Absolutely. And it's always interesting for me to take note, Bishop, when we have these locations around the world that you're talking about. I like to see which ones on Google Earth are presented to us in 3D and which ones are flat. I feel like there's some sort of, they're trying to hide some information from us. Obviously, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia is a major capital in a major country, but we can only look at it two-dimensionally. So that's an interesting factor. The other thing I like to always remind people, Bishop, that in addition to hearing you every Tuesday here on Crowdsource the Truth, people can listen to you on the radio. People can go to liferadionj.com/Gaiters, and that's Gaiters. The Bishop is on the radio as well at 92.9 FM you got to be in the New York, New Jersey area to receive that on the radio. But I don't know if anybody really is using a radio anymore, Bishop. I think most people are listening to the radio on some sort of digital device. So it's good that your message is reaching more people. And viewers of Crowdsource the Truth who want to support the global spiritual revolution can do that by going to paypal.me/GSRR Media Group. You can also support Crowdsource the Truth on Patreon and Subscribestar. Where should we begin today, Bishop?
Absolutely. Volume 1 of this brand new mini-series entitled Barack Obama, The Paradigm of Saudi Arabia, The Paralysis of America. Now, just in case some of your listeners were not privy to last week's concern, Valerie Jarrett and her family's connection not only to Saudi Arabia money, but also their connections to communist and socialist organizations, initiatives, and foundations. Now, remember last week we talked about Valerie June Jarrett, born in the nation of Iran. Shiraz, Iran, on the 14th of November, 1956. And then during that time, her father, Dr. James E. Bowman, a pathologist, a Black eugenicist, who was the director of pathology and medicine at the University of Chicago, Pritzker School of Medicine, where Dr. James E. Bowman was an avid supporter of the 1939 Negro Project. So we talked about that manifesto, right? Which
And
the
isn't there
grandmother...
Sorry, Bishop. Isn't there someone in the Pritzker family who is still a governor or a congressional representative or something like that?
Absolutely. That same bloodline that even to this very day, where Governor Pritzker, and he's trying to pass unconstitutional laws there in the state of Illinois. If we have time, we can expose that later on in the broadcast. But Valerie Jarrett, I believe she is a Saudi plant as well, not because she was born in Shiraz, Iran, but because of her connection to Barack Obama, Vernon Jarrett, her former father-in-law, being connected, all right, to Frank Marshall Davis and this Don Warden, right? This Dr. Khalid al-Masura, who was one of the founding fathers of the Black Panther Party, all being connected back to Barack Obama with
Give us that
Saudi
Black Panther name again, Bishop. I lost you for a second. Who was the founder?
Yeah, Dr. Khalid al-Masura, okay? Or better known, his real name is Don Warden. He was the mentor for Huey Newton and the rest of the Black Panther Party that began after the assassination of Malcolm X. So then Don Warden, aka Dr. Khalid al-Masura, wanted to create a Islamic caliphate in Black America. He was the mentor of Barack Hussein Obama for a period of 29 years.
Whoa.
And so just relayed that foundation, an excellent picture there. Some of the founding fathers of the Black Panther Party, that was a communist, socialist, Marxist, Maoist, Leninist organization with financial backing, not just from Saudi Arabia through Don Warden or Dr. Khalid al-Masura, but the foundation, the financial foundation of the Black Panther Party came about because of a billionaire by the name of H.L. Hunt. We talked about him several months ago.
Yeah,
H.L. Hunt
he owned the book depository in Dallas.
Yeah.
Dealey Plaza.
Yeah, and that's right. And he was heavily involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. It was the night before, as a side note, before the 22nd of November, 1963, on the night of the 21st, H.L. Hunt, okay, J. Edgar Hoover, Clyde Tolson, okay, many members of the higher echelon of power of the Central Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency, right, met to plan, right, along with the many of the chieftains of the chief executive officers of ABC, CBS, NBC, met the night before to plan one of the worst days in American history, and that was the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Now, H.R. Hunt was a segregationist. He provided $100,000 a year to Elijah Muhammad and to the Nation of Islam, which Malcolm X exposed. That's why Malcolm was taken out. Also, H.R. Hunt supplied the Ku Klux Klan $100,000 a year. He also supplied, H.R. Hunt did, $100,000 a year to the American Nazi Party of America, George Lincoln Rockwell. But he also supplied $100,000 a year to the original Black Panther Party by using Don Worden, okay, Khalid al-Masura, the mentor of Barack Hussein Barry Soetoro. So then I'm going to unpack this today by kind of reshaping this foundation, beginning with Valerie June Jarrett, okay? Her father, Dr. James E. Bowman, a Black pathologist, right, at the University of Chicago, the Prisco School of Medicine. And also, Dr. Bowman was the director of the Department of Genetic Medicine. Now, according to the 2015 op-ed in the Judicial Watch, which is one of the most powerful patriotic online informational sites today, giving authentic information, links, dates, and times to FBI files, where it clearly shows that Dr. James E. Bowman was closely connected to a Soviet agent by the name of Alfred Stern. We talked about him, Alfred Stern. Now, we don't know if the late David Stern, the former commissioner of the National Basketball Association, is related by blood. I don't have that information. Maybe next week I can have that information. But Alfred Stern was the former Illinois housing administrator. His wife, Martha Dodd, was also a spy for the Soviet Union. All right. So then Martha Dodd's father was Bill Edward Dodd, who was the first ambassador during the Franklin Delano Roosevelt administration, the first ambassador to the nation of Germany. So then Dr. James E. Bowman kind of rebuilding this foundation that would bring us to this crescendo of what we call Barack Obama, the paradigm of Saudi Arabia, the paralysis of America. So then Dr. James E. Bowman in 1962 becomes the assistant professor of medicine and pathology. He was also the director of the blood bank, right, at the University of Chicago Prisco School of Medicine, okay, the blood bank for sickle cell anemia. In 1973 to 84, Dr. Bowman, the father of Valerie June Jarrett, was also the director of the Sickle Cell Center, okay, for comprehensive research. And this is according to the National Institutes of Health. They are in Washington, D.C. So Dr. Bowman was well connected, my friend, as we rebuild this foundation concerning Barack Obama, the paradigm of Saudi Arabia, the paralysis of America. His mentor, the mentor of Dr. James E. Bowman, was a man by the name of Dr. Alf Alvin. And you and I talked about him last week. Dr. Alf Alvin, capital A-L-F, Alvin, capital A-L-V-I-N-G, right? Who was also a pathologist, a eugenicist, invited Dr. Bowman, his protege, okay, to Chicago to help him with his depopulation studies by sending Dr. Bowman to Ghana, to Nigeria, to Niger, to Ethiopia, Uganda, including Mexico, to do depopulation studies by injecting malaria into the children's of these geographical locations to see, Jason, how the body of these children would respond. That is genocide, okay? Again, Dr. Alf Alfring also was the director of the Stateville Penitentiary malaria study going back to the 1940s. So then the Stateville Penitentiary malaria study in Joliet, Illinois, and you showed a very powerful picture last week of that institution having a smokestack, which also points to the evil regime of the Third Reich, right? Before and during the advent of World War II, where the Third Reich, one of the most evil regimes in history, and they were all hung, and rightfully so, were cremating and destroying the bodies of our precious Jewish brothers and sisters. So Dr. Alf Alving, along with many pathologists and eugenicists from the University of Chicago, began to inject malaria into 800 prisoners at the Stateville Penitentiary in Joliet, Illinois, beginning in the 1940s, going throughout the 50s, in the middle part of the 60s. As we are connecting Barack Obama, the paradigm of Saudi Arabia, the paralysis of America. So I'm just kind of rebuilding this foundation, just in case some of your listeners were not privy to this information last week. So this Dr. Alf Alving, the mentor of Dr. James E. Bowman, offered each prisoner at the Stateville Correctional Institute, right, in Joliet, Illinois, anywhere from $25 to $100 per prisoner per injection, to be guinea pigs to receive malaria in order to see how the anatomy of the bodies of these prisoners would respond. Many of these prisoners, Jason, ended up dead. So Dr. Alf Alving, just like the Nazis were hung, Dr. Alving should have been lynched, okay? Because Dr. Alving was committing genocide, even on American prisoners. So then Dr. Alf Alving was a nephrologist. A nephrologist, my friend, specializes in diseases infecting the human kidneys, okay? Along with Dr. Ray Dern and Dr. Ernest Butler, with the assistance to Dr. Alf Alving. So I just want to go through this foundation that we started last week, that we talked about the synagogue of Satan being the architects of inversion. During the Nuremberg medical trials, Jason, after the advent of World War II, many Nazi doctors had testified that they not only knew Dr. Alf Alving, but they also testified that Dr. Alf Alving had taught them how to inject malaria into prisoners. Okay? Margaret Sanger also traveled to Berlin, Germany, and Hamburg, Germany between 1935 and 1940, and had taught the Nazi regime, okay, more specifically, Dr. Ernst Rudin, who had signed off on the 1939 Negro Project, including Margaret Sanger's signature, including the signature of Dorothy Taylor, the grandmother of Valerie June Jarrett, to sign off on the 1939 extermination of their own people, okay, of Black America. Now, I am a Black conservative, Jason. I don't teach victimhood. What I'm doing today And really, I'm so passionate, Jason, because in the Black community, you got a multiplicity, a plethora of Black pastors who are supporters of Planned Parenthood. In other words, these African Americans are not only the supporters of Planned Parenthood, they were also the supporters of the 1939 Negro Project, calling for the extermination of their own people. As we're going to connect the synagogue of Satan to Barack Obama, the paradigm of Saudi Arabia and the paralysis of America.
Bishop, can I ask you quickly?
Absolutely.
There's some kind of Margaret Sanger project at NYU. Why is NYU so concerned with Margaret Sanger?
Now, isn't that a very interesting? And again, Jason, not to be redundant, you are a great host and a great researcher. I didn't know that. Now, last week you brought the Stern family, that the Stern family, owns all of these colleges and universities in New York.
Yeah, the Stern School of Business at NYU. Let me read you something from the Margaret Sanger project here. It's part of the NYU library. This is from Sanger's Dream Journal, February 3rd, 1942. She says, "Last night I dreamed of Hitler. Saw him in a room so close that I could see his eyes wink. Dream not very clear at 3 a.m. Just awoke. But house I was in with others, raided by Nazis. I hid under a table with others, but one woman's leg was discovered. Then we all were brought forth. Hitler came in to execute war plans and operations using this house as his base. A bird flew into the room from the window and lighted near me. It was white and a dove. Hitler caught it and held it up high over my head and told me to pick out a feather. I did so and awakened." What do you think of that, Bishop?
Again, that is so powerful, because it tells me one thing, Jason, that Margaret Sanger, who was also a practitioner of not just eugenics of killing children that she deemed to be feeble-minded, but she was heavily involved in what I call divination in witchcraft, that she was heavily involved into contacting the underworld. Adolf Hitler had the same ability. The entire Third Reich demonic regime were practitioners of witchcraft, warlockism, and also they were practitioners of contacting the underworld. So then it tells me one thing, that Margaret Sanger was connected with not just the spirit of Adolf Hitler, which is a principality, a demon, but her soul, the soul of Margaret Sanger, though her body was on the earth, but her soul was in hell. It tells me that she was no longer operating in her own thinking, in her own mind. That's a powerful, powerful connection there, Jason, as we're talking about Barack Obama being, the paradigm of Saudi Arabia, the paralysis of America. Excellent.
One more thing I want to point out about it, Bishop, that tells us something else about Margaret Sanger, because this is someone who's so steeped in her own superiority that she feels the need to exterminate other people who are inferior to her. I know that usually when a university does a job of archiving these types of writings, you would imagine there's a lot of people poring over it and verifying the accuracy of what they're doing. So if this is accurate to what Sanger wrote, she's got a grammatical error here. One woman's leg should have an apostrophe S. So perhaps she's intellectually inferior and should be exterminated.
See, in other words, we had talked about eugenics, some months ago, several months ago, that you have major notable people in history, Helen Keller, blind, but yet a proponent of eugenics. Now, I'm not making fun of Helen Keller. the late Helen Keller, because she's all blind people. What I'm saying, Helen Keller, okay, Dr. Charles Darwin, the father of the Darwinian theory of evolution, and his cousin, Dr. Francis Galton, the father of eugenics in the Western Hemisphere. Both Galton and his cousin, Darwin, had multiple nervous breakdowns during their university days. But yet, Jason, they are hypocritical because they are proponents of eugenics, okay? Creating the perfect Aryan race. That is a Nazi psyop. That is a Nazi demonic psyop that still exists in this country today. And so most of these people who are ardent supporters of eugenics have multiple deficiencies, not just physically, but psychologically and spiritually, you know? And so it's hypocritical. And this Dr. Alf Alving was closely connected to Margaret Sanger, because you and I talked about this doctor last week, right? Dr. Alving, that he also injected 60 psychiatric patients at the Illinois State Hospital. This is according to the National Institutes of Health website, NIH.gov. The prisoner as model organism, malaria research at Stateville Penitentiary. Again, all right, the prisoner as model organism, malaria research at Stateville Penitentiary. Okay, and this is also according to the 2010 ethics protocols. So then Dr.
Wow, that's on NIH. That's amazing, Bishop. And you know, it also reminds me of the Arkansas prison blood scandal that the Clintons were involved in. They're just carrying on the same kind of thing.
The same thing. And again, these devils don't love you and I. And these devils who are dividing and conquering America, race versus race, color versus color, religion versus religion. It's a class warfare, while these devils at the top, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Planned Parenthood, are cashing checks at the top. And this is the reason why later, this is a powerful program as always. Later, I'm going to prove that not only was Barack Obama a Saudi plant, but many of the Muslim Congress people, okay, like Congresswoman Omar, who married her brother to gain entrance into the United States of America. Congressman Omar should be in prison right now.
Absolutely.
These are Saudi plants. So then, Dr. James E. Bowman, quickly, before we get to Barack Obama, of the Association of Interns and Medical Students, which, according to the FBI, was a communist front. So then Valerie Jarrett...
Sorry, I missed that name, Bishop. What was the communist front?
The Association of Interns and Medical Students. And this is according to the 2015 op-ed through Judicial Watch. And mind you, as a side note, Jason, they were never sued, by the Obama administration or by Valerie Jarrett, because what Judicial Watch revealed and exposed was the truth. So the Association of Interns and Medical Students, according to the FBI 1950 declassified files, that was an association that was a communist front that Dr. James E. Bowman was a member of. So then Valerie Jarrett, born in Shiraz, Iran, during the Pahlavi dynasty, capital Pahlavi, which their bloodline had produced the Mujahideen, one of the most radical Islamic terrorist groups on this earth. And as a side note, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, the Mujahideen, the Muslim Brotherhood are all creatures of the Central Intelligence Agency and British MI6, okay? So they
and when I bring up
create
the Pahlavi dynasty, it's showing us the Shah of Iran.
And was he not disposed by the CIA in a coup d'etat?
He was put
Absolutely.
in there
So the
and then
Central
taken out.
Intelligence Agency, yeah, absolutely. So this is the CIA, and I believe I said this on last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, that the Central Intelligence Agency is not only the biggest drug dealing organization on earth, but the Central Intelligence Agency is the Fourth Reich, Jason. Okay? They had built the Central Intelligence Agency from the Office of Strategic Services from 42 to 45. And after World War II, the OSS was absorbed into the CIA. So you had people like Wild Bill Donovan, okay, one of the founders of the CIA. And mind you, as a side note, Jason, what I found out today, that the founding father of U.S. counterintelligence, a man by the name of John Jay, was also one of the framers of the Constitution of the United States, is a blood relative, okay, or a progenitor that produced the wife of John D. Rockefeller. I will come to that in the next 15 to 20 minutes as we're kind of relaying this foundation of Barack Obama being the paradigm of Saudi Arabia. So then, anytime, jump right in if you see something, Jason.
They
so
have
then,
a
Valerie
university
Jarrett's
for this guy, John Jay, but I don't know that much about him.
Yeah, I think there is a John Jay University here
Yeah.
in New York City.
Yeah.
And so then Valerie Jarrett's mother, Barbara Taylor, and I won't go through the whole chronology because we talked about her last week. But in 1966, Valerie Jarrett's mother, Barbara Taylor, co-founded the Erickson Institute, named after a communist and a socialist, a psychoanalyst, Erik Erikson, who called himself a psychoanalyst, but he never had an earned PhD. Sounds like a person like Jeffrey Morgan Stiebel. So then the mother of Valerie Jarrett, Barbara Taylor, was heavily connected to the American Communist Party, USA, along with Frank Marshall Davis, along with Khalid al-Massoud, along with Vernon Jarrett, who all were connected into the life. That's an excellent family picture there, Jason, of the family of Valerie June Jarrett. Excellent picture there. Excellent. Yeah. These people are a part of the Boule Secret Society, what I call the upper class Black bourgeoisie element of Black America, which John D. Rockefeller said represent the 1/10 of the Black population. That determinate tenth was a phrase that John D. Rockefeller gave to W.E.B. Du Bois, that Dr. Du Bois would choose, along with Henry McKee Menton, 1 out of 10 African-American men and women, highly educated, to be a part of the Black Skulls and Bones that was created on May 15th, 1904, in the city, in the hometown of Kobe Bryant, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So then the Boule Secret Society, that Dr. James E. Bowman, okay, Barbara Taylor, the mother of Valerie June Jarrett, Dorothy Taylor, who signed off on the Negro Project Manifesto that would bring about the plan of exterminating her own people. Dorothy Taylor was also a Black Boule Secret Society members. These people, Jason, are devils. They don't care about the masses of Black, white, brown, and yellow and red Americans, as we're exposing not just the synagogue of Satan, but Barack Obama and his connection to Saudi Arabia money. Excellent photo there of the logo of Sigma Pi Phi. And as a quick side note, and I'm glad that you're showing that insignia, this logo is a half a man, half a woman, half an animal, representing the transsexual sexual disorientation psyop of the Boule. And it has its right paw on what we call an urn, capital U-R-N, which they keep the ashes of dead people. That represents, Jason, that the Boule Seeker Society, they are chosen by the global Luciferian elite not to protect the masses of Black and white and brown Americans. They are chosen by the elite, okay, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Sassoon family, to protect the very system that has Black America been enslaving them for 450 years. Same system. This makes no sense. The same system that has enslaved, and I'm not teaching victimhood. I'm just breaking down this foundation, pointing to Barack Obama. The same system, okay, the Khazarian mafia system through the Atlantic slave trade that is instituted the concept of slavery, okay, because slavery was never abolished, Jason. Let me say it again. Slavery was never abolished. Slavery was only redesigned. How? Through the Boule Seeker Society, that they were use our people to destroy our people. This has nothing to do with white people. This is our people destroying each other. And this is the Seeker Society that produced the worst president in U.S. presidential history, Barack Hussein Obama. Yeah, in connection to Saudi Arabian money. So then quickly here, before we get to Barack Obama, so then Valerie Jarrett's mother, it co-creates the Erickson Institute. They specialize in the analyzing the psyop, or the psychology of the minds of children. Now, remember VIP Kid, right. That online Chinese educational initiative that Cindy Wen-Jiang, we talked about her, right? And Kobe Bryant wrote her $1 million check, which doesn't make any sense because he didn't know her. So then the Erickson Institute, along with VIP Kid, specializes in the psyop of children, psychoanalyzing the psychology of children, okay? Then we talked about Dorothy Taylor being an agent provocateur. She was the grandmother of Valerie Jarrett. She signed off on the extermination of her own people, okay? The Negro Project, 1939. The NAACP supported the Negro Project. Yes, the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, at the behest, okay, of the Khazarian Mafia. I'm not talking about Jewish people. I'm talking about that evil regime who are perpetrating as Jews. They're not true Jewish. They don't have true Jewish blood like you, my friend. So the Khazarian mobsters, we're talking about Henry Moskowitz, all right? The Spingarn brothers, they created the NAACP, also the Urban League, SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and also CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality. And no pun intended, they have African-American faces, but these African-American leaders don't control their own organizations. Remember, slavery was never abolished, Jason. Slavery was only redesigned through the creation of the NAACP, Urban League, CORE, SNCC, okay, including other organizations like the Southern Christian Leadership Conference with Dr. King. The entire civil rights movement, before we get to Barack Obama, from 1955 to 68, was inundated, saturated with communists and Khazarian money. Even the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a communist front to this day, where the deep state, they use the psyop of color. Everything is about color. Everything is not about personal responsibility, Jason. It's all about systemic racism. And as Bishop, a side note, my friend, The
Yes.
problem, the tragedy of Black America is not racism. Uh-oh, I got everyone's attention now. The problem, the tragedy of Black America is the lack of fathers in homes. That's the tragedy, as we're going to expose not just the synagogue of Satan, but Barack Obama, his connection to the kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Now,
Now
Bishop,
we're
may I
coming.
just point out
Go
a
ahead.
few things on this Erickson Foundation website that you just told us about? Because also,
Yeah.
Charles Davis is in the comments reminding us not to leave out Lyndon Johnson. So these photos from the Erickson Institute, I guess they seem, maybe they're from the 60s. They're black and white. It's hard to say. I mean, the hairstyles on
Yeah.
these children look more modern than, I don't know if cornrows were being worn in the 60s, but this child has that and the California t-shirt. But they look like kind of older photos. The caption on this one does say that President Lyndon Johnson officially announces Project Head Start from the White House Rose Garden.
Wow.
Actually, it's the first time I've really thought about the concept of the Rose Garden. We've spoken a lot about the symbology of the rose, the Compass Rose, Rashad Mendenhall's Nappy Rose production company. Compass Rose was the law firm that the fake whistleblower was using. There's that Compass Rose logo that we identified at the base of the pole in the
Right.
Peter Nygaard plane. But this is, I can tell by looking at this is a black and white photo that has been colorized. And to me, these children look more like they're from the 1960s, like the style of the clothing this little girl is wearing, even the dress this older white woman is wearing, and then just the shirt. This doesn't really look like clothing that children in the 1990s or 2000s would wear. It looks more like stuff I was wearing in the 70s. But they've
Yes.
colorized this photo, which is strange. Oh, look at the record player. You can tell. This is definitely the 60s or the 70s. But they've
Yes.
colorized it to make it look bright. They've added skin tone to both the black and white children's face. But it's really, it's this white woman teaching a classroom of mostly black children. And then this picture above is an old white guy. This looks like a more modern photo, but put in black and white just to make us think it's older. This California printed shirt just doesn't look like something from the 60s to me, right?
And
It's
you know what,
interesting.
Jace? If you can go back to that 1960, yeah, with the woman teaching in yellow,
Yeah.
that looks like Lady Bird Johnson.
Oh, wow. Yes, it does. And it's talking about
former
Lyndon
First Lady.
Johnson. Yeah.
Yes, that looks like I can't substantiate that. Maybe your listeners can do some research on
I
that
think
as
you're
we speak.
right.
But Lady Bird Johnson,
No, that's
yeah,
her. Because look at the
that
haircut.
looks like
And
Lady,
she has
and you know,
kind of a big
yeah.
nose.
exactly. And Lady Bird Johnson's family was very political and was very powerful politically and financially. All right. Another topic for another day. But in that picture, that's Lady, it could be Lady
think it
Bird
is.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Now, absolutely, sir. Her husband, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and thank you to your listener for bringing up Lyndon Baines Johnson. Now, Lyndon Baines Johnson created the Great Society, the New Deal, in 64 and 65, which did not benefit Black America, that has almost destroyed us to this day. Because prior to the New Deal, most of Black Americans were not liberal or progressive, Jason. Most of them were conservative Christians or Christian conservatives or members of the GLP. But in 64 and 65, through the New Deal, which was the creation of the welfare state, the Voting Rights Act, okay, also the creation of the American Ghetto, a housing project. We talked about the grandfather of Valerie June Jarrett, Robert Rashawn Taylor, the Robert Taylor homes was built, all right, because of the New Deal. Remember, slavery was never abolished. Slavery was only redesigned. Through where? The 1964-65 Great Society New Deal, public accommodations, okay, created the American welfare system. In other words, when we talk about, okay, the New Deal, and as a side note, in 1966, Lyndon Baines Johnson, let me say this again, Lyndon Baines Johnson, in 1966, along with Dr. King, received the Margaret Sanger Award. And I compel your listeners to look that up. In 1966, which was the same year that the Erickson Institute was created. The same time the LBJ and Dr. King received the Margaret Sanger Award. Wait a minute, I'm confused. Why would Dr. King be a supporter of Black extermination?
Yeah.
As we're exposing not just the synagogue of Satan, but connections to Barack Hussein Obama. Excellent. Again, Lyndon Baines Johnson is not a friend of Black America, okay? And do you know who is Lyndon Baines Johnson today? Uncle Joe Sleepy, Crippin, Sniffin Biden said the other day that if you don't vote for me, you're not Black.
I mean, that was
Who
terrible.
does he think he is, Jason?
Well, he said you ain't Black, so he's trying to kind of like, I don't even know what, like pander or speak some stupid old white guy version of Ebonics.
That's what they do. They think we're stupid. And this is why, in Malcolm X, in a 1963 interview, when he spoke at the University of California at Berkeley, that 1963 interview, look it up on YouTube for your listeners, he talks about the white liberal establishment being both a fox and a wolf, okay? Both a fox and a wolf are canine, right? He says they both belong in the dog factory, and both the fox and the wolf represents a white power structure on the left in this country who pander to the emotions of Black people through a problem reactionary solution. This is what they do, Jason. And thereby they use boule crab attorneys, right? Like Benjamin Crump, in order to solicit money by exploiting the pain of Black families who lost their loved ones. This is exposing not just the synagogue of Satan, excellent picture there, but also Barack Obama. And we talked about this not just some months ago, my friend, but last week on Benjamin Crump's website, the Benjamin Crump Institute. Third paragraph down, the fourth and fifth sentence, it says on his website that he is a member of Sigma Pi Phi Boule, and he's also a member of the Michael R. Moore Lodge, 764 in Tallahassee, Florida. Wait a minute, who's Michael R. Moore? He is a ordained pastor in the Church of God in Christ who is worshiped as a God, but yet he's preaching Jesus. That is hypocritical. My job, I'm a contract killer, Jason. My job is to decapitate darkness as we're going to look at the life of Barack Hussein Obama. Okay, so we talked about also Planned Parenthood.
One quick thing on Benjamin Crump while we're on him, Bishop, because he's got this Benjamin Crump Institute for Social Justice. I'm pretty, like, I don't know. Do you have an institute, Bishop? I don't have an institute. This guy's a lawyer, so I guess he makes a lot of money. But having an institute, I mean, it seems like somebody like dead and old, famous, like Benjamin Franklin Institute or something. But why does this guy have an institute?
See, because he is a boule attorney, and 90% of Black attorneys in this country are bouleists. They are mentored and manufactured by the system. That's why Barack Obama is a manufactured deep state CIA individual. These people are not real. Benjamin Crump having an institute, and now there's a difference or a differentiation between an institute versus a college or a university. Institutes receive private money that doesn't have to be reported to the IRS. Institutes, and this is where, who is subsidizing Benjamin Crump? Okay, the same powers, not white people, the same Luciferian powers who are trying to divide Black versus white. These are the same demons, Jason, that are giving millions of dollars to Benjamin Crump. He doesn't care about the family of Trayvon Martin. He doesn't care about the family of this jogger that was shot. And he won't tell you, Jason, that the jogger that was shot has a rap sheet. And he was also arrested multiple times, okay, for breaking into people's homes. You see, but
Really?
the mainstream media tell you that. You see,
Wow.
exactly. So that father, and I'm going to get some hits today, Jason, but that father and son, they were protecting themselves in that neighborhood, okay? Listen, I'm talking about the Boule Sticker Society. Go right ahead, Jason.
Well, one more thing about Benjamin Crump, because when I see Institute, I'm thinking that's not the same as like the Benjamin Crump law firm. That sounds like a business. An institute sounds to me like probably a nonprofit. And I just did a quick search for Benjamin Crump on the ProPublica Nonprofit Explorer. Look at this huge range of nonprofit associations. Boys Choir of Tallahassee, Innocence Project of Florida, National Bar Association. What is Crump? Why is he showing up with this? We should look into this further. Maybe he's just donating to these things, but I'm just curious as to what is going on with Benjamin Crump and his institute. I seem to see that there's a lot of people who like to have these 501c3 organizations so that they can have a way of getting money and not paying tax.
And that's what it is, Jason. Again, Benjamin Crump, Jesse Jackson, Reverend Al, Vitamin B Deficient Sharpen, these devils are race pimps and hustlers. They don't care about the masses of black people. Now, black people are going to scathe me on your channel. I don't care. My job is not to kowtow to black people because I'm black. I am an American. I'm a child of God first. I'm an American second, okay? So then my identity, Jason, is not in my pigmentation. That's what I am, but that's not who I am. Who I am a child of God. I am an American. So people like Benjamin Crump, they're getting, and he belonged to the Michael R. Moore Lodge. Now, who's Michael R. Moore? He ordained pastor in the Church of God in Christ, in which the Church of God in Christ, before we get to Barack Obama, which that organization is called COGIC, okay? Church of God in Christ, founded by a man by the name of Bishop Mason in Memphis, Tennessee. There are a multiplicity of bishops, okay, and pastors that have died of COVID-19. Let me say it again. These bishops and these pastors in the Church of God in Christ, they got multiple bishops who are homosexuals. They got multiple pastors who are gay, going to these conventions, wearing a clergy collar, but a dress in high heels with a beard. Jason, listen, that is an abomination. Well, This is what Benjamin is a part of. He's a part of the Michael R. Moore Lodge, right, in Tallahassee, Florida, okay? And Michael R. Moore is a pastor in the Tallahassee, Florida area. He is the senior pastor of the Powerhouse Church of God in Christ. As we're talking about exposing not just the synagogue of Satan, but Barack Obama. Now, let's get into
one more
Barack
thing on
Obama.
Benjamin Crump, because this is super interesting. I did just find on his own website, and this didn't come up when I searched for Benjamin Crump Social Justice Institute on the Nonprofit Explorer. I don't know if people can see this. I've got it highlighted, but it says on his own website, the Benjamin Crump Social Justice Institute is a private nonprofit organization, and it's got an asterisk next to nonprofit. And in searching around for what that means, the computer crashed, Bishop. Now, I've got air conditioning pumping in this room right now so that the computers don't overheat, because I thought that might have been the cause of some of our crashes. But it's frigid in the room right now, and it just happens to freeze the computer at the moment we're investigating Benjamin Crump. So luckily, you can still carry on. I'll restart that computer while you speak.
Absolutely. And why is Benjamin Crump masking and shielding his financial affairs? because that money is out of Saudi Arabia, okay? And we're going to get into Barack Obama in 5 minutes. Most of these black politicians, Barack Hussein Obama, okay? Even his wife, Michelle Obama, all right? Congressman Omar, Rashida Tlaib, these are Saudi fronts, okay? These people are not Americans. They're not patriots, Jason.
What about Keith Ellison?
Being financed. Yeah, Keith Ellison, exactly. Thank you. Was it Keith Ellison who sings the praises of a current Adolf Hitler person by the name of Louis Farrakhan? I'm sorry. Louis Farrakhan is anti-Semitic, okay? When he's comparing the precious Jewish people, okay, as dogs and fleas, that is hate, that is anti-Semitism, and that is not supposed to be the mindset in the spirit of being an American, okay? Now, there's going to be black people who are going to call me an Uncle Tom. You know what, Jason? I do not care. My job is to expose evil regardless of the race, creed, color, or ethnicity. So then when we get now to the person of Barack Hussein Obama. Now, as a quick side note, we talked about those 17,000 fetuses that were found, remember, in Los Angeles, outside of the home of a man by the name of Weisberg. And we talked about him last week, right?
Yes.
And so I believe it was in that 1982 Los Angeles fetus disposal scandal. I won't even go into that. So what, 17,000 babies were found outside of the home of a high-level executive for Planned Parenthood, who owned at that time the Medical Analytic Laboratories in Santa Monica, California. Okay, over 17,000 fetuses were found in a dumpster. This was Dr. Malvin Weisberg. Okay, a Khazarian devil. Jason, listen, these devils, they don't care about human life, as we're going now to expose Barack Obama. Now, the paradigm of Saudi Arabia and the paralysis of America. Excellent points that in length that you showed us, Jason, within the first hour of today's interview. Now, to understand, and jump in anytime if you see something, to understand the psyop of a black politician, and especially in the life of Barack Hussein Obama. I won't go throughout his entire life because we already know concerning his background, his parents. But to understand the paradigm of a Barack Obama, you have to look at the origin of Saudi Arabia. So then the term Arabia goes back at least anywhere from 15 to 20,000 years. Arabia, okay? Now, why is it called Saudi Arabia? Capital S-A-U-D-I, because the House of Saud, with the financial backing, okay, of the Rothschilds, okay, through the Western powers of England, MI6, in America, okay, the OSS, had created with Rothschild and Rockefeller oil money, okay, the present day modern Saudi Arabian kingdom. So to understand Barack Obama, let's look at the origins of what I call the historicity of Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is a composite, historically, of 3 Saudi states, all right? Now, the first Saudi state took place in 1744, called the Emirate of Diriyah, capital D-I-R-I-Y-A-H. So the Emirate of Diriyah was the first, right, or foundational Saudi state that was established in 1744 through Muhammad ibn Abdullah Wahhab, okay, who is the father of what we call Wahhabinism, okay, capital W-A-H-H-A-B-I-S-M. Wahhabism, which is an Islamic doctrine or religion that is mostly conservative, and that gave birth to the Sunnis and the Shiites that we're going to talk about here in the next few minutes. To understand the psyop of Barack Obama, we have to look at the origins of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So the first Saudi state in 1744, through Muhammad ibn Abdullah Wahhab, okay, including there in 1744, had created the first Saudi state. Now, remember the former British Prime Minister, David Lloyd George, had said in a powerful statement in 1934. He said that Britain is the slave of an international financial bloc. Again, Britain is the slave of an international financial bloc. Now, why would Prime Minister David Lloyd George say that? Because the Rothschild dynasty, through the Balfour Declaration, okay, that we're going to talk about, that came out in November of 1917, that would later create the future state of Israel in 1948, 3 years after the advent of World War II. But through the Balfour Declaration, the Western powers would also create, okay, through the reunification of both the first Saudi state and the second Saudi state, would create the present day modern Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So the modern day Saudi Arabian kingdom is a Rothschild creation. I know this is blowing people's minds. The present day modern Saudi Arabian kingdom, okay? So the term Arabia, or the Arabian Peninsula, goes back thousands of years. But when the House of Saud took it over in 1744, and then it began to be a creation from the Western powers, okay? So then I'm just laying the foundation concerning Barack Obama being the paradigm or the reflection of the replica of Saudi Arabian thought. So then, as we talk about the second, so then the first Saudi state, before we get to the second one. So the first Saudi state in 1744, through Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, including Prince Muhammad bin Saud, okay, in 1932. So the first Saudi state, through Muhammad al-Wahhab, capital W-A-H-H-A-B, produced a bloodline prince by the name of Prince ibn Saud, okay, capital I-B-N Saud, that in 1932 was knighted by the British Crown.
Wow.
To create the present day Saudi Arabian kingdom. Oh, Jason, this is powerful here. So then, as we're talking about the paradigm of Barack Obama, so the bloodline, okay, of Muhammad ibn Wahhab, that bloodline had produced, okay, 15,000 progenitors or princes or people of what I call the black nobility in Saudi Arabian history. But also what is so interesting about Muhammad ibn Wahhab, the creator of the first Saudi state, he is a blood descendant, Jason, of a man by the name of Hassan E. Sabah, capital S-A-B-B-A-H. Well, who is Hassan E. Sabah? He was the creator of the Order of Assassins, going back to 1090 AD. The Order of Assassins was a secret society, and this is where we get the term assassination. It is an Arabic term meaning to extricate or to take out someone, to extricate or to take out, to murder, to remove someone from this earth, from what we call time. So this is scary here. So the order of assassins, okay, which also they were hired by leaders during the Ottoman Empire from 1299 all the way up to 1922 to be hired to take out certain global leaders going back during the time of the first Saudi state in 1744. So Hassan-e-Sabah it created the order of assassin. Okay. Now, Jason, before we get to the second Saudi state, as a side note, the video game Assassin's Creed, and I want if the team, yeah. So the Assassin's Creed is a replica of not only the Knights Templar in the 1540 Jesuit Secret Society, but the Assassin's Creed is a replica or a paradigm of the Order of Assassins going back to 1090 AD to Hassan-e-Sabah, being the progenitor of a bloodline that reproduced Prince Muhammad, okay, Ibn Wahab, being the creator of the first Saudi state. So Assassin's Creed is modeled after the secret order of assassins, Jason. As we're talking about Barack Obama being the paradigm, excellent picture there, video there, the paradigm of Saudi Arabian money. So then the second Saudi state, okay, began in 1824 through Turkey bin Abdullah bin Muhammad. Turkey bin Abdullah bin Muhammad in 1824 ruled Najad, or Najad with the D silent, capital N-A-J-D, from 1823 to 1834. So the blood descendants of Turkey bin Abdullah bin Muhammad would dominate both the second and the third Saudi states, which is now the modern state of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So the third Saudi state began in 1902, okay, through the unification of both the first Saudi state and the second Saudi state. So at the behest of the Western powers, Jason, it was Ibn Saud, capital I-B-N Saud, of the House of Saud, because the term Saud, for your listeners and students, comes from a Persian word, okay, Saudai, capital S-A-U-D-A-I. And there's many interpretations of the word Saud, okay, but from a Persian interpretation, Saud or Saudaya means the complex of power, okay, or the proximity of power. So the third Saudi state, excellent picture there, Jason, the third Saudi state was created as the proximity of the complexion of power, not of the Saudi Arabian people, but the power of the third state would reflect the powers of the West in the United States, okay, in the United Kingdom, okay, with the backing of the Vatican, as we're talking about Barack Obama's connection to Saudi Arabian money. So in 1932, the unification of both the first and second Saudi states has now produced the modern day Saudi Arabian government through Ibn Saud, capital I-B-N Saud, is the progenitor of the House of Saud. And so the unification of Saudi rule, they were put in power by the Western powers, Jason, okay, through British MI6, okay, them being protected today by the American Central Intelligence Agency. Okay, so the Balfour Declaration, okay, in 1917 was a manifesto that established the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, okay, as being a created creature of the Western powers, okay, the modern day third Saudi state. So through the Balfour Declaration, okay, a year before the end of World War I, was to establish a national home for the Jewish people, which would take place in 1948, 3 years after the advent of World War II. So then, through the Balfour Declaration in 1917, the Western powers, through Rothschild money, Rockefeller oil, that they have bloodsucked from the Arabian people and still do to this day, okay? That's why we have never invaded Saudi Arabia, because they serve the interests of the American empire, okay? So then the Balfour Declaration establishes two entities, Jason. They establish the future state of Israel in 1948. And two, the Balfour Declaration will create a third Saudi state, which represents the modern kingdom of Israel. Okay, so author Balfour,
Modern
okay?
Kingdom of Israel, the third Saudi state, or Saudi Arabia?
No. Right. The Balfour Declaration would produce the future state of Israel, which is Palestine, right, in 1948, and would also establish the new modern kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is the third Saudi state. Okay,
right.
So Ibn Saud was knighted by the British crown right
Bishop,
before
it seems to me
1930.
It seems to me like they did this to create two enemies to pit against one another, Saudi Arabia and Israel.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy. They create two entities, the state of Israel with the backing of the Rothschild dynasty, right, and the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to create what I call an Isaac and Ishmael psyop. Now, for your Bible students, now remember the two sons of Abraham. Ab means father, okay? Ra means of, and now Ra in Coptic means God, but Ra in Hebrew means of, okay? And Ham means black or burnt skin, okay? So when we say Abraham, now remember Ham being one of the three sons of Noah. So God changed Abraham's name from Abram, remember the last three letters, ram, the ram in the bush, to Abraham, ham, burnt skin, okay? Now, I'm not teaching black or white. I'm just interpreting from a spiritual paradigm what Abraham means in connection to the creation of these two kingdoms here, Israel, Isaac versus Ishmael, Isaac, Israel versus Ishmael, Saudi Arabia. And you hit this right on the head, Jason. This was purposely done to fulfill, okay, the mindset of Albert Pike. Albert Pike had said and prophesied, Albert Pike was the face of the Ku Klux Klan, with the backing of the Rothschild financial powers that be, right, out of England, had hired their agent, Judah Philip Benjamin, to hire Albert Pike to be the face of the Klan. And we talked about that many times in 1865. So, but Albert Pike said that the future endeavors of the Western powers of the global deep state is to create a World War III catastrophe between Christianity of the West versus Islam of the East. That was the intention of the Western powers. So while West is killing East, East is killing West, but the devils who are orchestrating both sides, Jason, are cashing checks at the top. Right. As we're talking about this demonic paradigm, which is Barack Obama, now getting back to the Balfour Declaration, okay? So then the Foreign Secretary for the British government, okay, Arthur Balfour, who was an agent to Lionel Walter Rothschild, who was the second Baron Rothschild, or Baron de Rothschild, through the transmission to the Zionist Federation of Great Britain. So Saudi Arabia is a Zionist creation, okay? I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, Jason. I'm just pointing out, excellent link there, Jason, that letter. So then, the Zionist Federation, Zionism was created by a 33rd and 1/2 degree Mason of the Scottish Rite Order, Theodore Herz, capital H-E-R-Z-L, created Zionism. It was Karl Marx, okay? It was Lenin and Trotsky, okay? And Stalin. All of these Bolshevik demons leading up to the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. And as a side note, you and I talked about this some weeks ago, that Wall Street, Jacob Schiff, okay, I don't know if he's related to Adam Shifty Schiff, but Jacob Schiff, through Kuhn Loeb Company, gave a $20 million check, okay, to Leon Trotsky, whose real name was Leon Bronstein.
$20 million?
Who stayed in an apartment. $20 million, Jason.
When was that? The guy died in 1940. That seems like a huge sum of money.
That was you see, when we talk about Kuhn Loeb and Company, now Kuhn Loeb and Company, which was a Wall Street extension of the Rothschild dynasty. Kuhn Loeb and Company was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's a lot of money today, but that was a lot of money going back to the early part of the 1900s. So Kuhn Loeb and Company had financially backed Lenin, Trotsky, okay, and Stalin because they wanted the overthrow of the Romanovs, right? Tsar Nicholas the First, who had betrayed the Rothschilds. Now they were going to take out Tsar Nicholas II and his entire family in order to put a puppet communist government, okay, as commissars, right, being a part of the new Soviet government in 1917. Now,
wait, Bishop, sorry, real quick. Have you told us about John Mortimer Schiff, an American investment banker and philanthropist who was the partner at Kuhn Loeb and Company, but also was the national president of the Boy Scouts? That seems like a weird thing for a rich, fancy investment guy to do. Why is he hanging out with the Boy Scouts?
Oh, Jason, I did not know that. Wow. So he was the creator of the Boys, or the national president of the Boy Scouts.
It's weird, right?
Jason, that is weird. And then you hit a nerve with me like you always do. Now, if your listeners can go to Wikipedia and type in Ibn Saud, capital I-B-N Saud. I think you had his picture there a couple of minutes ago. When you look at an excellent point there concerning that national president of the Boy Scouts, and now they are involved in pedophilia. Another topic for another day. But on Wikipedia, Ibn Saud, capital I-B-N Saud. Now, if you enlarge his photo, Jason, okay, what I'm about to say, I cannot substantiate this. You notice his right pinky finger, okay? He has a ring, his right pinky finger. Now, you remember General Soleimani of Iran was taken out by U.S. forces, right? Through the Central Intelligence Agency, right? So, and Soleimani, they found a ring that was similar, not the same shape or structure, but the same ring that was on the finger of Soleimani, which a lot of people are exposing today, Jason. I cannot substantiate this, that many people in the global pedophile underground network has these rings. Oprah Winfrey has one. Gail Steele King has one, okay? Many celebrities in Hollywood have this ring, which according to the FBI declassified files, is a ring representing those high up in the global child trafficking pedophilia system. So why would, and again, I'm telling my Saudi Arabian brothers and sisters, I'm not calling being Saud a pedophilius, but note, and there you go. Excellent, Jason, excellent. So like you said last week or week before last, concerning that vase, right, that was behind Dr. James E. Bowman, that vase looking like a @ sign, right? Representing, and it's called perception. So then when I look at a being Saud on his right pinky, that ring, now the Saudi Arabian government, they're one of the most powerful producers of child sex trafficking. I'm talking about the Saudi Arabian government, okay, who are supposed to be godly. So then the middle finger there, but that ring, now the sex trafficking industry, especially with boys in Saudi Arabia, where little boys are sexually molested in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So I just wanted to point that out. With
real quick,
that
Bishop,
ring,
the ring has come up. Remember, there was this article in the New York Post, which actually, in my interview with Alan Dershowitz, he basically insulted me, calling this a conspiracy theory, despite the fact that I was presenting him with evidence that there may in fact have been a conspiracy to publish false information. It's different than the ring that we see Ibn Saud wearing, but a lot of people have pointed out that it's very strange that Ghislaine Maxwell was prominently displaying this really pretty bold and unusual ring.
Again, Jason, great detail by your listeners. I keep repeating myself time and time again. You got the most astute listeners I've ever been a part of in 25 years of radio within the radio industry. So excellent detail, vision by you and your listeners. Again, and when I'm saying to my Saudi Arabian brothers and sisters, okay, I'm not saying that Ibn Saud was a pedophile, was a part of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabian underground pedophilia network, but that it came out to me and it connected in my spirit that Oprah Winfrey, General Soleimani, are all a part, right, of the same child trafficking underground system, okay, as we're connecting Barack Obama to Saudi Arabian money. And so then quickly here, the Balfour Declaration establishes the state of
Bishop.
Israel.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. Sorry to interrupt again.
But go right ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to tell you that in Saudi Arabia, there is no legal age of consent. Marriage is legally required before sex, but I guess they could marry any person.
Wow. See, that that substantiates, okay, what I am talking about. That is, and remember a few months ago, I talked about the life of the Prophet Muhammad. He had married, a 8 or 9-year-old girl.
Right.
That's pedophilia. Now, people are going to say, well, Bishop, that was the culture and that was the way. Like, no. If it's pedophilia now, it was pedophilia then. That's the origin of not only Islam, okay, but also of the science of the Saudi Arabian government. Now, I'm not calling every man in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia a pedophile. But what I'm saying, and you just substantiated, there's no clear age of consent, okay? And we also talked about that is in the volumes, the 20 volumes of the Talmud, all right? And we won't go down that, but that's another topic for another day. Excellent, excellent find there, Jason. And so then, as we're talking about not just the greatest global cover-up in human history concerning the presidency of Barack Hussein Obama being connected to the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, as a side note, the Jewish state of Israel was then created in 1948. Now, for your gematria students, I don't go too much into gematria. I can, but I don't want to spend 2 hours talking about numbers, okay? But in 1948, 1 + 9 + 4 + 8 equals 22. I mean, letters in the Hebrew alphabet, 22. Nothing is by accident. So then, the reestablishment of Jewish sovereignty, okay, in the land called Israel, which is the present state, okay, of Israel, okay? So then the Rothschild dynasty created the present state of Israel, okay? So then the Khazarian Mafia, I'm not talking about Jews, I'm talking about the Khazarian Mafia, had politically backed, Jason, the 1917 Balfour Declaration, that on November 2nd, 1917, a year before the end of World War I, which ended the following year in 1918, the Balfour Declaration created both the future state of Israel and the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Barack Obama, a paradigm of Saudi Arabia, and also he is a paralysis of America. So the third Saudi state, we talked about that, okay? Now, it's interesting that the third modern day Saudi kingdom, which is the modern day government in Saudi Arabia, okay, was financially backed by the Rothschild dynasty. Now, and to your students, to your listeners, they know this, what I'm about to say. The name Rothschild was not the original name of the dynasty. It was the Bauer family. Now, going back to 1577, the Bauer family, capital B-A-U-E-R. So the Bauer family, in 1577, Isaac, capital I-Z-A-A-K, Isaac L-E-L, Conan, capital C-H-A-N-A-N, Bauer. So Isaac Bauer in 1777 had changed his name from Bauer to Rothschild, which means Rothschild, which is a Baphomet structure on a shield. So then that family changed their name because they wanted access to Vatican financial power, okay? Which now they control the Vatican Bank and every birth certificate on earth. So another topic for another day. So
it
then
keeps
in
bringing me back to
1744,
Mayor Rothschild, but that's not the same guy, right?
yeah. Well, no, Isaac Rothschild or Isaac Bauer is the great-great-great-grandfather of Mayer Amschel Rothschild. Now, Mayer Amschel Rothschild, that was born in 1744, is a direct bloodline descendant of Isaac Bauer, who changed his name to Rothschild or Red Shield, okay, to gain political and financial access to the Vatican Bank. So in 1744, excellent point there, Jason. So the Mayor Amschel Rothschild once said, I don't care who sits upon the throne of the British crown as long as I control the money. That's where the power is. So Mayor Amschel Bauer Rothschild was born in Frankfurt am Main, Germany. So the Rothschilds created two separate empires, okay? The 1932 Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is the third Saudi state today, in the 1948 State of Israel. So the Rothschild Khazarian Mafia Empire, as a side note, also are the creators of the Muslim Brotherhood. And we talked about that the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, okay, in about every single terrorist organization is the creation of not just the CIA and the British MI6, but also with Kanzerian mafia money coming in, what I call the compartmentalization of darkness. We have to create an enemy in order to justify going to war to make more money. Jason, that is a demonic psyop. As we're talking about, not just exposing these devils in the synagogue of Satan, but connecting Barack Obama being a paradigm of Saudi Arabia in the paralysis of America. And so the MI6 had created the Muslim Brotherhood, okay? So there's 170 or more terrorist organizations, and this is according to data going through the Central Intelligence Agency from last year. 170 organizations who are also 170 creations of Western powers. They create Al-Qaeda, they create the Muslim Brotherhood, they create the Taliban and use the Taliban, okay, for the opium and the heroin trade in Afghanistan. Because you have to understand, man, and you know this, Jason, 40% of the gross domestic product in this country depends upon the legal and the illegal drug trade. If that is shut down, the economy of the United States will fall. Now,
yeah, but it
I'm
already
going to
has.
get deeper here.
They shut down the whole economy.
It already has.
The whole thing is fallen.
It's exactly because of these devils, like little Tony Midget Fauci, and I'm not small people, and Dr. Deborah Scars Burks, and all these people trying to undermine the president. And like you said, I believe the economy of America will rebound, but I believe President Trump has got to lift the shutdown and allow the American people to go back to work. So then, as a side note, there are sectarian divisions within Islam. We're talking about Sunni Muslims, Shiite Muslims, and Kharijite Muslims, capital Kharijites. These sectarian divisions are creatures or creations of the Central Intelligence Agency and British MI6. So in 1932, Jason, and notice that picture you had of Dr. Fauci. And if you can go back to that picture you just had of Dr. Fauci with his right hand up.
He's giving
that almost looks like a replica. Yeah, that almost looks like a replica of the Baphomet statue.
Oh, you're right.
That Tony Fauci with his Where
did it go?
Right, almost it is a replica of the Baphomet statue, the Nazi salute. So then in 1932, there you go. So then in 1932, and that's he is replicating a Baphomet hand sign, okay? As we are exposing these devils that are connected still to Barack Hussein Obama. Excellent picture there, Jason. So then in 1932, Ibn Saud, capital Ibn Saud, of the House of Saud, going back to 1744, has 15,000 members, which consist of the House of Saud. Now, remember the two eyes I talked about of Abraham. We talked about Isaac, okay, and Ishmael. I'm going to say something radical, but it's true, and it's authentic, and it's in the Word of God. God said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called. So the land, the Palestinian land, does not belong to Ishmael. The Palestinian land belongs to the Jewish people. It belongs to the state of Israel. Now, I'm going to get a lot of hits today, but listen, my job is to propagate the truth. So then Isaac was one eye of Abraham. Ishmael was the second eye, okay? Now, there's a saying that an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, okay? And so then when you damage one eye, you automatically damage the other eye, Ishmael. And like you said a few minutes ago, Jason, the Western powers created both the state of Israel and the modern kingdom of Saudi Arabia to be a present day Isaac versus Ishmael battle. Let me tell you something, a two-state solution would never work. That's what Barack Obama and Bill Clinton tried to push. You cannot tell the state of Israel that they got to give up part of their land to the descendants of Ishmael. The Bible does not back that up. That land belongs to the children of Israel. As we're talking about Barack Obama being a paradigm of Saudi Arabia and the paralysis of America. And like we said a few minutes ago, in that Wikipedia page of being sawed with his right pinky finger in that ring, we're not saying that he was tied to child trafficking. But when I saw that ring, it brought a connection to General Soleimani, Oprah Winfrey, okay, Tom Hanks, okay, and all of these other devils in Hollywood that through code, they're telling us that they are a part of this child and human trafficking industry. And you
Bishop,
have backed
notice
this up,
this.
Jason,
by notice reading this real quick.
Yeah.
He's hiding it. He's sort of tucking it behind his finger.
Oh my goodness. Jason, again, you got a great eye of detail. You know, you're teaching me as well, Jason. I wouldn't even have thought of, he's hiding this, okay? Everything is perception, as you talked about that vase behind Dr. James E. Bowman last week. Everything is about perception. And these devils are showing you who they are, okay? So then this Abin Saud, born on January 15th, 1875, died on the 9th of November, 1953. He was the first monarch and the founder of the modern day Saudi Arabian kingdom. Now, there's a difference between Saudi versus Arabia. The Arabian Peninsula goes back 20,000 years, okay? Even through a biblical paradigm, Arabia in the Arabian Peninsula, including the Ottoman Empire, goes back thousands of years. But the Saudi paradigm doesn't come into fruition until 1744 of the first establishment of the first Saudi state. That's why they call it Saudi Arabia, okay? So Abin Saud with that finger on his right pinky could be, I'm not saying that he is, he could be connected or was connected to this global pedophile sex trafficking ring, especially of little boys in Saudi Arabia, okay? And I've had Muslim people, okay, past and present, tell me that there is a high rate of child pedophilia, especially with little boys in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, it's a powerful book that was written by Michael T. Clare, capital Klare, called Blood in Oil, The Dangers and Consequences of America's Growing Petroleum Dependency. Again, blood and oil, not blood and diamonds, or blood diamonds, but blood and oil, the dangers, okay, and consequences of America's growing petroleum dependency. It talks about that the Rockefeller Standard Oil Company had not only founded oil or petroleum in 1938 in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but the petroleum was founded by American geologists working for the Standard Oil Company of New York in partnership, Jason, with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Okay, that was in 1938. So then from the creation of modern day Saudi Arabia, the third Saudi state, 6 years prior to 1930 and 1932. Now, 6 years later, in 1938, okay, the Standard Oil Company, founded by John D. Rockefeller, is even today controlling the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, we know about the breakup of the Standard Oil Company, right, in 1911, because of antitrust lawsuits. And now, and I'm going to talk about them in a few minutes, you have 34 oil companies, right, like Exxon and Mobil and Chevron, all the result of that 1911 breakup of the monopoly of John D. Rockefeller's, right, Standard Oil. So in 1938, when this gets more exciting, in 1938, the Standard Oil Company found petroleum.
Bishop, I need to interrupt you
oil.
for a second.
Go right-
There's an extremely ignorant person in the chat here named Elizabeth Free who is spreading stupid information. And I want this person to understand something, because you've been trying to explain this to us and you're explaining it right now. She's putting in things that she says, oh, this is the Talmud, Jews have sex with children. First of all, I'm a Jew. I don't run my life by the Talmud. I've never been taught anything about the Talmud or this statement that she's posting. And they say, it's true, look it up. This is crap put into the world by people who want to do exactly what Elizabeth Free is doing. And I invite Elizabeth Free to go away and educate herself and not come back here spreading stupidity until she's done that. But what the bishop is explaining for us is that in 1917, corporatists who wanted to run the world, who, by the way, right now are winning. If you look around, you can't go outside.
Yes.
They put this out there where they publish texts and they create states and they pit them against each other so that ignorant, small-minded people like Elizabeth Free, who I'd like to know if she's related to Louis Free, the former director of the FBI, who is also probably a criminal.
Yes.
They want to pit us against one another. I do not live by this stupid statement in the Talmud. I don't live by anything in the Talmud. I've never read that. And just because it's on the internet doesn't mean that Jewish people live their lives that way. And when an ignorant moron like Elizabeth Free comes into the comments here spreading that crap, I admonish her and tell her to go away.
You are 100% right, Jason. And you know what? As a side note, I've been getting crazy emails, okay, also in my Twitter and Facebook inbox, from people sending me pictures, horrific pictures of paintings. And please, and I'm saying to the Jewish community and to every Orthodox or conservative or Messianic rabbis in America, please forgive the bishop what I'm about to say. But I've been receiving ugly, filthy, horrific pictures, paintings of rabbis sucking the penis of a child that was circumcised. Jason, this is hate. This is anti-Semitism.
Well, we need to discuss it for a second, Bishop. I have heard of that happening. There was an article in the New York Post that some extremely radical sect of Judaism in Brooklyn was still adhering to that practice. And there was a rabbi who had given certain babies herpes from doing that. Now, again, just because there are radical people that engage in these horrible things, anybody who's disappointed in me for saying what I just said, just go away now. Unsubscribe, cancel your sponsorship. I don't care. You can be disappointed in me. The fact is the bishop is describing a system where people who are trying to fool all of us create Saudi Arabia and Israel to pit them against each other, and they flood the internet, the newspapers, pop culture with all this hateful crap that people who don't understand what I'm talking about are spreading right here in the chat comments of this own show. If you cannot look at that and understand what's being done to pit black against white, Jews against Gentiles, Muslims against Jews. You got to step out of this psyop paradigm that the bishop has been telling us about and understand that this is stupid. So this woman, Elizabeth, has got to get blocked because she doesn't seem to have a brain in her head to understand when she's making me upset. It's time to shut up and go educate yourself, Elizabeth. You can be disappointed in me. I don't care. Go watch another show on the internet. You're not wanted here. Sorry, Bishop.
And I'm so happy that you're going to block her. And these other people who constantly disrespect you and disrespect me, those people, they have to be blocked. They are social engineers, okay?
Yes.
30, 40, 60 years old, staying in their mother's basement and don't have a job, broke, busted, and disgusted. And all they can do is trying to trash the bishop and my brother, okay? Brother Jason. Again, go away. If people, listen, all the time, I don't believe what you're teaching. Well, then why are you hearing the bishop teach every week? Because they know when I'm teaching is authentic, is the truth, is backed up by links, Jason. And again, these people represent the very psyop, okay, of divide and conquer, okay, black versus white, okay, religion versus religion, through the prism of ignorance, Jason.
And back to what you were saying, Bishop, about those disgusting photos. I agree, that is disgusting. And just because some radicalized person of an extreme sect of Judaism does that, it would be absolutely ignorant for any person to condemn all Jewish people because of that horrendous, disgusting act. You know, I don't know that many Muslim people. I just happen to not. But I did go to high school with a guy who was Muslim. And way before 9/11, I never thought about Islam, Judaism, whatever. We were and are friends. I don't think that this guy is an evil terrorist. He's a friend of mine who I went to high school with. And when someone does some, chopping of a head or whatever, I don't attribute that to every Muslim person.
Exactly. And I'm going to say something that's radical. And a lot of Muslim scholars and people within Islam are going to disagree with me. Now, the term Allah that they say is God, but the very doctrine, okay, or dogma within Islam, Allah is one of the 365 gods, representing each god of each day of the year, okay? Allah was the moon god. When we're talking about cornucopia, two horn, that's what Allah has nothing to do. God has nothing to do with Allah, and Allah has nothing to do with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I know I'm going to get some throwback today. I do not care. I have to expose this for what it is, Jason. Islam, okay, it's not a faith. It's not a religion. It is a psyop. It is a psyop, a political psyop of destruction through the lenses of peace. In other words, listen, it is a counterfeit peace. And Islam was not designed by, and again, I am not castigating my Saudi Arabian brothers and sisters, but the term or the title Allah represents one of the 365 gods that Muhammad had worshipped each day of the year, the moon crescent god, okay? And now in the book of Genesis, when God calls Abram, who later becomes Abraham, out of the Ur of the Chaldees, because Abram, before God called Abram was a worshiper of the moon, or the moon god, Allah. That is not the true God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose name is the Lord Jesus Christ. Allah is one of the 365 gods that the Prophet Muhammad had created. I'm exposing this, Jason, as we're talking about not just the synagogue of Satan, but also this paradigm that's connected to Barack Hussein Obama. And I'm going to say this, Jason, we got a few minutes left, but there was a man. Now, remember in 1930, and again, thank you so much, Jason, for bringing out what you brought up because it needed to be said. So in 1938, the Standard Oil Company, okay, had hired, Jason, a British politician who was also the senior advisor to Prince Ibn Saud, capital Ibn Saud, in 1938, who was the first monarch of the third Saudi state going back to 1932, which represents the modern schematical structure of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So this British senior advisor that was hired not just by MI6, but also hired by the American government through John D. Rockefeller, was a man by the name of Harry St. John Bridger Philby. Harry St. John Bridger, capital BRIDGER Philby, capital PHILBY. Well, who was Harry Philby, or AKA Jack Philby? He was a British intelligence officer for MI6, which is the British equivalent of the American CIA, and Harry St. John Bridger Philby, okay, who converted to Islam, okay, and so it was an MI6 agent, and he was also the first socialist, Jason, to join the Indian Civil Service in 1908. We're talking about Harry St. John.
I got to stop you a second. So this guy, St. John Philby, he's a British intelligence agent. He converts to Islam. Sounds a hell of a lot like John Brennan, doesn't it?
Oh, my God. Wow.
Because he's alleged to have converted to Wahhabi Islam when he was the station chief for the CIA in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia.
Oh, my God. And this, again, Jason, excellent insight, my friend. I absolutely love how you and I flow each and every week. So this Harry St. John Philby, okay, his father, okay, was a man by the name of Harry Montague Philby, Montague, capital MONTAGUE, who was a double agent. I'm talking about the father of Harry Philby, okay, who was Harry Montague Philby, who died in 1913, okay.
That might be Montague. I think it's Montague.
Yeah, Montague, thank you. Sir Harry Montague, capital MONTAGUE. Thank you for that correction.
Oh, my God. Wait a minute. Did this guy go to Oxford? He's in the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography. I don't know if he went to Oxford.
Well, yeah. Jason, guess who is the son of Harry Philby? Okay.
Who?
Was a double agent, okay? This person, okay, give me a minute, because I'm jumping. I don't want to jump ahead of our listeners. I want to come back to the chronology. So Harry St. John Philby, his son, Kim Philby, was a British MI6 agent, a double agent provocateur working for the Soviet Union.
Wow.
Kim Philby, during the Cold War, was a double agent provocateur working for both British MI6 and the Soviet KGB. Kim Philby, who had left Great Britain because the MI6 was after him and moved, okay, and immigrated to the Soviet Union. He is the son, Jason, of Harry St. John Bridger Philby, who was an advisor to Prince Ibn Saud in 1938, who was also an MI6 agent, John Philby, who was also an agent representing the Standard Oil Company.
Wow.
So John Bridger Philby, Yes, this
Right
is
now,
here.
David Hawkins is doing a series on the Oxford double cross, where he talks about the history of double agents in
Yes.
MI6 and
Yeah.
how they turn agents and how they focused on creating American and British Dominion agents through the Cecil Rhodes Scholarship and Oxford University, specifically Bill Clinton and Susan Rice and Cory
Yes.
Booker, and I mean, there's so many
Yes.
people.
Valerie June Jarrett. These are double agents planted by our enemies, okay,
Right, yeah, Valerie
planted
Jarrett.
by, especially through the Saudi Arabian government to subvert American power, okay? So this John Bridger Philby, not to juxtapose my timeline here, but this John Bridger Philby, his son is Kim Philby, a traitor to the Western powers. He was a double agent provocateur, Kim Philby, the son of John Bridger Philby, okay, for both MI6 and the Soviet KGB. So Harry Philby, the father of Kim Philby, worked for the Saudi Arabian government as an advisor to Ibn Saud at the behest, okay, of both British MI6 and John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil. And so Harry's father, who is the grandfather of Kim Philby, okay, Harry Philby, okay, who died a year before the outbreak of World War I, was a spy, Jason. Guess who? For the Bolshevik Revolution. He was a spy. I'm talking about the grandfather of Kim Philby, Harry Philby, who died a year before the outbreak of World War II. He was a spy for the Bolshevik Revolution, for the Bolsheviks of Lenin, okay, Stalin, and Trotsky. So the entire bloodline of the Philbys, they are traitors to their own governments. They are agents, double agents, provocative. Jason, this is powerful here, okay?
Yeah.
So this, in 1 minute and we're done. So this Harry St. John Bridger Philby converted to Islam in 1930. Okay, he was an advisor to Ibn Saud. Okay, and he converted to Mohammedanism or Islam in 1930, which led to the creation of the modern day House of Saud, right? The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 1932. And it was Harry St. John Bridger, the father of Kim Philby, okay, and the son of Harry Philby, another agent for the Soviets. This Harry Philby was also a advisor to the House of Saud and forced the House of Saud to give up their oil to the Western powers of Great Britain and the United States of America. This Harry St. John Bridger Philby, who had converted to Islam, not because he was in love with Islam, like you said, like John Brennan, these devils convert to other religions in order to perpetuate themselves as a mole.
Right.
Okay. And remember the movie some years ago called Salt, capital SALT, with Angelina Jolie.
Yes.
Yes. She was a high, deep level Soviet agent.
Right.
Deep level. Absolutely. And so your listeners, and I'm so sorry to get excited, but if any of your listeners have not seen that movie, you guys have got to watch that movie. What Jason and I have been talking about for the past 2 hours, it's in that movie Salt. She was a Harry St. John Philby. She was a Kim Philby in the present day vernacular, who was Harvard educated, Oxford educated, had infiltrated the highest levels of American intelligence in order to subvert American power. These devils had been at this for years, and they were set up a spy, Jason, in the matter of years. They were, in other words, it would take them 30 years, okay, in order for them to release what they call D-Day, okay? the day that they were to take down their respective governors that they were assigned to. So this movie, Salt, is the exact same thing that the Western powers through the 1917 Balfour Declaration had set up British spies within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, not only to control it, but to control the oil. That's the reason why Barack Hussein Barry Soetoro had destroyed the Libyan government. And let me say this, my friend, and I'm done here today. Oh, I'm so excited, okay? The Libyan government, before Barack Obama destroyed it, okay, the Libyan people were the recipients of the oil profits, okay? Now, who was the devil? Who was the leader or the dictator of Libya that they took out? Okay, what's his name, Jason? His name evades me right now.
But he wasn't regarded as a dictator and a devil by the people of Libya. He was loved by the people of Libya.
And then Gaddafi was the one who had said a few years before his death, and any one of your listeners can go onto YouTube and just type in Gaddafi talks about the JFK assassination. Muammar Gaddafi had said that it was the state of Israel, the Mossad, that took out JFK because John F. Kennedy wanted to close down a nuclear plant in northern Israel. This came through the mouth of Gaddafi. So Gaddafi took billions of dollars worth of profits from his oil reserves and gave that money to his people. Now, mind you, Reagan bombed Libya, okay, during the early 1980s. There's no question Gaddafi was a terrorist, but Gaddafi was, reforming himself. And it was his so-called friend, Barry Soetoro, who took him down. Why? Because these devils in these Western powers of the Central Intelligence Agency, British MI6, okay, French intelligence, and German intelligence, the BND, wanted to overtake the oil reserves in Libya. Okay, this is a psyop regarding Barack Obama, the paradigm of Saudi Arabia, who has become the paralysis of America. And that is the end of our volume 1 here today. Jason, this was a powerful program. I'm telling you, you taught me so much today. Again, these powers at the behest of the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, okay, in taking control of the oil rights in Saudi Arabia, is pinning East versus West, West versus East, while these devils at the top are cashing checks. And it was Muammar Gaddafi had said that JFK was partly taken out because JFK wanted Prime Minister Ben Gurion to shut down that nuclear plant, the Dimona nuclear plant in northern Israel. The Dimona nuclear plant. And JFK was upset with Ben Gurion in the Mossad because the Mossad, Jason, did not tell U.S. intelligence and did not tell JFK that they had developed weapons of mass destruction. So then JFK said, you either shut it down or we're going to invade Israel. Guess what? JFK gets his head blown off. Now, I'm not saying that the Mossad was behind him. I'm saying that Ben Gurion, who was a Zionist, would not back down from the threats of John F. Kennedy in closing the Dimona nuclear plant in northern Israel. That's what Muammar Gaddafi had said on YouTube. Look it up. He says...
Let me pause you a second, Bishop, because I think there's a couple things we disagree on here. So there's a show that we do every Monday night called Unseen Libya with Jimmy and Joanne Moriarty. They're a delightful couple from Texas who actually share a lot of the same views you do about the Khazarian mafia and all that. They had started an oil services business in Libya in 2007, and they never met Gaddafi. They aren't, trying to promote Gaddafi, but in their own observations of the Libyan people and what was going on in Libya, Gaddafi was loved And basically everything that we've heard in the United States about Gaddafi, about anything that he had to do with terrorism, TWA Flight 800, Moriarty's telling me that that was all made up propaganda to get people to hate Gaddafi. I don't know too much about the history of JFK and what he wanted to do or not do relative to nuclear stuff in Israel. I did find this article as we were talking, titled it's called How the Israelis Hoodwinked JFK on Going Nuclear. I'm interested to learn more about this, but it's interesting to note that this is published in Foreign Policy magazine, which I believe is a Rothschild-owned publication. And it has occurred to me just, from thinking about it. We had this person who, in addition to the ignorant comments from before, was asking me, what about the dancing Israelis? Now, you and I are not talking about 9/11 today. It is well known that 5 Israeli citizens were arrested and were observed dancing around, seemingly celebrating the destruction of the World Trade Center. And somehow, the really simple-minded among us use this to presume that Israel must have done everything. Now, I don't doubt that Israel, or Israeli individuals, we should say, were very likely involved in 9/11. I think there were probably a lot of people of a lot of different nationalities, including Americans, who were involved in 9/11. There may well have been Israelis involved in the assassination of JFK, but I have studied the JFK assassination extensively, including meeting with eyewitnesses and becoming personal friends with Judith Vary Baker, who presents a very credible story about having a personal relationship with Lee Harvey Oswald. And I think it's difficult to imagine that anyone other than the CIA could have been in the point position to handle that. There's a lot of manipulation of U.S. government agencies like the Secret Service, certainly dealing with government officials in the city of Dallas. It just does not seem possible that any entity other than the CIA could have been in the point position on the assassination of JFK. And everybody else who was involved was likely coordinated by or hired by the CIA and Lyndon Johnson, working in conjunction with them. So I'm not saying that Israel didn't play a role in 9/11 or the JFK assassination, but it is really difficult to understand how a foreign government could have done something like that and the United States would just allow it to happen. When we look at the things that you've presented today, Bishop, the Balfour Declaration, the British Empire creating Saudi Arabia and Israel, it just reeks of an intelligence operation where you want to create the public perception of two people or two entities being enemies, and then rally supporters around each of those enemies and have the enemies and their supporters fighting each other, while, as you said, the people at the top of this scheme are cashing checks and laughing at all of us. And the irony is, Bishop, we are all right now locked in our homes and apartments, living through the latest iteration of this type of fabricated false psyop. And that's not to say that there's not real danger associated with these things. It's just not at all what's been explained to us. And people who perpetuate these falsehoods on the internet are ignorant of the facts, and they are just allowing this type of thing to continue.
And you know what, Jason, I when I'm looking at this from all sides, right, in our conclusion, I believe with almost 100% certainty that the Central Intelligence Agency took out President John F. Kennedy. I don't think it was the KGB. I don't think it was Mossad. I think it was the Central Intelligence Agency. Now, remember, during probably the first hour of the broadcast, I said that the wife of John D. Rockefeller, Eliza Davison, was a blood descendant of the father of U.S. counterintelligence, John Jay, who was one of the framers of the U.S. Constitution, okay, in the Bill of Rights, okay, and the Declaration of Independence. I just wanted to bring that out. Now, remember, in my conclusion, excellent point you just made there, Jason, because I agree. I don't think I don't, from my research, I have not found any authentic proof that the Mossad or the KGB was complicit in the assassination of JFK. Now, there might have been some lower level rogue agents from the Mossad or the KGB, but the ones who had cast checks, given out millions of dollars to everyone that was involved, the media, right, and the shooters, including the military and the Pentagon, it was the Central Intelligence Agency. Now, William Wild Bill Donovan, okay, who was one of the fathers of both the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, which was absorbed into the Central Intelligence Agency in 1945. In 1938, William J. Donovan worked for John D. Rockefeller Standard Oil as an attorney. William J. Donovan was one of the agents, including this Harry St. John Philby, who had persuaded the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Prince Ibn Saud in 1938 to give up the power of the oil to the Western powers. It was Harry Philby, the father of another traitor, Kim Philby, along with the future director, creator of the Central Intelligence Agency, William Wild Bill Donovan, who was played by Robert De Niro in that movie, The Good Shepherd.
Oh,
okay.
I got to see that movie. There's one other important thing I want to bring together on this, Bishop, because there were, let's presume that JFK was saber rattling with Israel and upset about this nuclear power plant. That's one factor. There were many, many factors that played into the motivations of the enemies of JFK to want to have him killed. You mentioned H.L. Hunt. He was a Texas oil man who had other business interests as well, but there was a collection of Texas oil millionaires who would ultimately become oil billionaires. And it's important for people to understand how Saudi Arabia played a role in all this, and how what you're saying with the Rockefellers and the Khazarian mafia, the banking mafia that controls the world. When JFK was assassinated, 1963, LBJ then became the president. That started the Vietnam War, which created deficit spending unlike anything the United States had ever seen before. And of course, the sinking of the USS Liberty, again, another thing that the ignorant bigots of the internet say was entirely an Israeli plan done, and that's proof that they hate America and that they control the world, which is why LBJ wouldn't do anything to them. That makes no sense whatsoever. Israel was like, 20 years old as a nation at that time and super dependent on the United States for financial support, military support, diplomatic support. It makes no sense whatsoever that they would just go rogue and attack a U.S. ship. What makes a lot more sense is that a deceptive, double-dealing, criminal, disgusting individual, as you've described today, Lyndon Johnson, who deceives black people of America by saying we're going to have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. He deceives the public with his role in the assassination of his boss, essentially, JFK, ascends to the most powerful position in politics in the world by doing that. Seems much more likely that this guy would plant a false flag and force Israel to attack that ship so that he could say, oh, wow, Israel did this. We had nothing to do with this. This seems to fit the mold. Same thing happens when you hire 5 Israeli dopes to get arrested in a van in New Jersey and then put that on the news. It certainly helps a lot to convince the ignorant Jew-hating people out there that Israel must have done this because here are 5 idiot Israelis who got arrested. Based on the success rate of Mossad and Israeli intelligence, I think it's safe to assume that if they did do it, it's highly unlikely that they'd have their operatives dancing around in New Jersey and getting arrested.
You are exactly right. And I'm smiling here because, again, I love your spiritual insight, my friend, because this is a psyop they create. In other words, not to say Mossad is not ruthless. They are. And mind you, if I'm the Mossad, I would be ruthless too. They have to protect the homeland of Israel because you got enemies surrounding that small country who want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Okay. Now, what came to my mind, you talk about LBJ. I'm going to say something that people are going to disagree, but I don't care. Lyndon Baines Johnson, okay, after the assassination of JFK, okay, who was sworn in on Air Force One. He didn't have enough patience to wait till he got back at the White House.
There was no need for him to be sworn in at all. When there's a transition from vice president to president, there is no swearing in. He just wanted that.
No. And the body of JFK wasn't even on the plane. Okay, that's another topic for another day. But LBJ, in order for him to fund the Vietnam War, he was using Social Security money to fund the Vietnam War. Now people are going to say, "Oh, I don't believe it." I don't care. LBJ, that racist demon, okay, whom Black people praise as a human rights, civil rights leader, he was funding part of the Vietnam War with the money from the American people, unbeknownst to U.S. Congress and to the Senate. Social Security money to fund the Vietnam War, which was also a drug war under the pretext of defeating communism. Okay. Now, this Lee Harvey Oswald, Jason, and let me ask you a question. How can a man that has barely $300 in his banking account be able to enter the Soviet Union, stay in a high-class apartment, okay, getting so many rubles per week, okay, with the KGB not allowing to touch him, marrying a Soviet girl, okay, and bringing that woman and coming back into the continental United States of America and not be arrested as a traitor? To me, Jason, Lee Harvey Oswald, who was a patsy, had to be high up in U.S. intelligence. What say you? What do you think of that? Because there's no way that you and I would be arrested at the airport. This man was allowed to come back into the United States of America.
Goes beyond that, Bishop. You're talking about travel behind the Iron Curtain in the 1960s. It was unheard of. Even a wealthy individual couldn't do it. I forgot one of the most important things I meant to say with my rant there. And as you say, so much money was spent on the Vietnam War that by the time LBJ, he didn't run for a second term. I'm not sure why. We need to look into that. But when Nixon came in right after LBJ, he took the United States off the gold standard and made the new commodity backing the value of the dollar, oil. And this was the strategic value of Saudi Arabia because they had so much oil and they were the leaders of OPEC. This was when the value of the U.S. economy transitioned to this commodity that was owned by all these Texas billionaires who wanted to kill JFK. And now we've got another ignorant individual who's not even using their real name, who presents another one of these straw man arguments that these Jew-hating, ignorant people always present. They say half of Congress are dual citizens with United States and Israel. And I simply say, present one piece of evidence to support that claim. No one has ever been able to do that. And this fake name, ignorant, Jew-hating, social engineering person tells me to go do the research. I've done the research. Every moron like that person who comes to this channel and tells me half of Congress are dual citizens with Israel, I say, look, I'm open to that possibility. Show me one element of evidence. They've never been able to do it. The closest thing to evidence is Cynthia McKinney, who's also a liar, who received thousands of dollars on September 11th, 2001, to her campaign finance committee from individuals who later were arrested for terrorism. She said on an Iranian television interview, she made that claim, but she provides no evidence. I've not seen a passport for name the person. I don't like Adam Schiff. I don't like Chuck Schumer. They're both Jewish. I hate them. I think both of those guys should be in jail. They're criminals against the Constitution in the United States. But show me a passport from Israel. Don't just make that claim. I think these guys are just regular Jewish American scumbags, and they get a lot of money from AIPAC, but that doesn't mean that they're dual citizens. I don't agree with lobbyists paying a lot of money to politicians and having influence over how they vote for laws. I don't think that should be allowed at all, whether it's Israel, the pharmaceutical industry, Bill Gates, whoever. But these people coming in here making these stupid comments, Bishop, I've lost my patience for it.
It's ignorance. I mean, and you know what they say, ignorance is bliss. You know what? You have ignorant people. It doesn't matter what type of proof or links you show them, that this is the psyop of the deep state, that they absolutely love people like this. And I can tell you another thing to add on what you said, to piggyback on what you said. When I talked about Congressman Ilhan Omar, who married her brother in order to gain entrance into the United States, that woman should be in prison. And Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, these are Saudi plants. These are people that hate, Jason, the United States of America, okay? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, okay, a former bartender. How does these women gain that type of power? You see? And that's why President Trump is exposing these devils, right? And getting back to that 1911 the Sherman Antitrust Act, where the federal government broke up the oil monopoly company, the Standard Oil, which is now a composite of 34 oil companies, more specifically with Exxon, Amoco, Mobil, and Chevron, okay, including BP, British Petroleum, right, out of London. So the notice is, so then before the 1911 Sherman Antitrust Act, John T. Rockefeller and his sons had a global monopoly. They controlled, Jason, not just 90% of American oil, but 85% of the oil reserves around the world. And they, along with the Rothschild Khazarians, through British MI6 and the Western powers of the United States, okay, and France, had created the present kingdom of Saudi Arabia, okay? This is the pattern, okay, of the paradigm of Barack Obama. Barack Obama is the paradigm, a perfect pattern, a schematical structure of a what I call, he is the perfect replication of Saudi Arabian thought, okay? But he's also the paralysis, okay, of America. What is paralysis? The loss of the ability to move, okay, because of illness, poison, or injury. The inability to act or to function in a personal. Barack Obama almost destroyed this country. He is a Saudi plant. He doesn't love America. Barack Obama needs to be in jail. Okay, he needs to be in prison. That will never happen. But this is the end of Volume 1 of Barack Obama. He is not only a traitor to this country. And again, Jason, like I said last week, it's never personal with the bishop. Okay, but Barack Obama, the paradigm of Saudi Arabia, the paralysis of America. And I cannot wait for us to come back next week, because 15 of those 19 hijackers came from the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They were connected to Saudi Arabian intelligence, the General Intelligence Agency, okay? The General Intelligence Presidency of the GIP, right, which is the Saudi Arabian intelligence of the American CIA. 15 of those hijackers. Now, not one American family who lost loved ones on that day can sue the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Why? Because Barack Obama had blocked it. They're all involved. And that is the end of Volume 1 of Barack Obama, the paradigm of Saudi Arabia, the paralysis of America.
Yeah. And, you know, Bishop, this topic and the subtopics that sort of come out of it are inflammatory, because so many people have been affected by these psychological operations. They're literally designed to appeal to the most primal instincts. Religion is very important to people, and this sense of tribalism. And I'm not talking necessarily about actual tribes, but people feeling connected to a group, whether it's their religion or their nation or, we've got somebody here who knows what we're talking about. Robert is saying one word, petrodollar. And that's just it. They wanted to, the individuals that controlled oil, and in the 1950s and 60s, that was such an important commodity because it was the jet age and post-war, a chicken in every pot, the American dream, owning a car. Everybody needed oil. It was literally the fuel on which the American economy ran. It's interesting to observe, Bishop, and I don't know if a lot of people have spoken about this yet, but as we transition to a more modern society where solar energy and wind energy and battery technology are becoming more viable alternatives to the burning of oil for energy, it seems that technology and information have become the most valuable commodity. There's a huge breakthrough in battery technology that is about to occur, and it's going to affect each of our lives probably in ways that we can't quite conceive of yet, and it's going to seem very esoteric, but the company Tesla is about to have an investor sort of day called Battery Day. And Samsung recently made an announcement along these lines as well. There's a radical shift coming in battery technology, Bishop, where solid-state batteries are about to become consumer products. And this is going to mean a dramatic increase in the energy density of a standard battery. So imagine if your cell phone could operate for a week without needing to be recharged, or if your electric car could drive 2,000 miles without having to recharge. Or if you could now put far less batteries in an electric car to make it lighter so it would be less expensive, et cetera, et cetera. This is about to happen. So we have this transition from oil or energy to technology. And who sits at the top of that technology empire but Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, all these guys that seem to be connected in a variety of ways to the Margaret Sanger, to the Rothschilds, to all of these families that you're talking about. And I've mentioned David Hawkins and his show, David Hawkins Discovery CSI, which is on Fridays. We've been talking about how all these things are interconnected and interrelated, and the secret societies, the Rhodes Scholars. Cecil Rhodes had a 200-year manifesto. It was his plan for how to control the world. And he knew it would go beyond his lifetime, and he needed to recruit these agents like Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton is very connected to Bill Gates. And we've got Jeffrey Epstein in there. So anybody who's like, oh, Israel did this or whatever, the CIA did that, I think that the British Empire and as an offshoot of that, the United States Empire seem to be the most economically and militarily powerful in the world. And it's my opinion that the intelligence agencies that come out of that empire seem to have fingers into all intelligence agencies and use them appropriately to foment hate and create these kind of, infighting psyops that you're telling us about all the time.
And Jason, can I say this real quick? Again, you're hitting some powerful nerves. The reason, and I'm getting email questions coming in to my laptop stating, people are asking me, why did the Western powers take out Gaddafi? You notice 6 months before the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi, okay, he was going to institute an African Federal Reserve System in Africa. Whereas if all the Western powers wanted to purchase oil, they could no longer purchase oil through the American dollar. They would have to purchase oil through gold. That's why they took him out. They could not afford to have Muammar Gaddafi to establish the African continent as a financial power, creating an African Federal Reserve, okay? Whereas the Western powers would have to purchase oil through gold, okay? And as a quick side note, one of those four companies that once owned the Freescale Semiconductor Corporation out of Austin, Texas, where there's 20 Chinese nationals perished in the Malaysian Flight 370. The Carlyle Group, okay, ran by the bin Laden family. Prince Bandar Sultan, okay, the father of Princess Rima Bandar, who reached out to Kobe Bryant. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
The Carlyle Group, which is ran by the bin Laden family, which financially backed the 19 hijackers, 15 of which were used as agents representing Saudi intelligence, the General Intelligence Presidency, or the GIP. 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi Arabian spies. But the Carlyle Group also possessed Bush money from the Bush family. And Prince Bandar and the Bushes are very close. So the daughter of Prince Bandar, okay, also sits on the Carlyle Group that were part owners, right, of Freescale Semiconductor. 20 Chinese nationals out of 239 passengers. That plane disappeared.
We're getting off a lot of tangents here, Bishop. I want to just, if I may, one quick thing. My understanding of the Gaddafi situation was that I don't know if it was a Federal Reserve, but you're right. He had created a gold dinar. He wasn't even the president or the dictator of Libya any longer. He was the president of the African Union. And what he did was he said that African nations were no longer going to trade oil for this petrodollar, the fiat U.S. currency, because he recognized that it was worthless and it was essentially a theft of their oil. Libya has not only huge quantities of oil, it has oil that is very clean. It doesn't need a lot of refining. So the amount of money that you need to spend to convert the oil into gasoline, it's just very valuable oil. Additionally, it has a lot of silicon, a lot of gold, a lot of minerals. It's a very rich nation with natural resources, and it's been plundered throughout history because of that. So what Gaddafi did in 1969, I think, was when he had the revolution. He nationalized all this stuff and created a kind of unique form of socialism where the people of the nation benefited from the nation's wealth. And you were given a house and healthcare was free, and people really loved him for that. He created this gold dinar for trading oil among African nations, and it was the currency of these African nations, and it was intended to challenge the US dollar and the euro on the international stage. And obviously challenging the petrodollar, this would have basically made the US dollar worthless, so they killed him.
See, and that's, and again, excellent point concerning the gold dinar, the real reason behind Gaddafi's murder. It had nothing to do with weapons of mass destruction, because he had destroyed that stockpile, Jason, okay, after Reagan bombed him in the early 80s. But you got this devil, Barack Hussein Obama, smiling in the face of Gaddafi, okay, but took him out, his entire family. Why? At the behest of the Western powers, okay? The Khazarian mafia, right? The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. And so they have destroyed Libya, okay? Because they do not, and I'm not making this a black and white paradigm, but the Western powers, they do not want these dark nations to have two things. They don't want these nations to have any type of financial independency or power, okay, like a Federal Reserve System. And two, the Western powers do not want these third world dark nations to have a nuclear weapon. Now, remember when the African National Congress took over South Africa, right? After Nelson Mandela. And I want to say something, Jason. Nelson Mandela was a killer. Nelson Mandela was a communist, a socialist, okay, being controlled by the Rothschild, Oppenheimer, Khazarian mafia out of Johannesburg, South Africa, okay? They got him out of prison, not because they loved Nelson Mandela. This is the Mandela effect. But now they use Mandela as a pawn to create and to control the African National Congress, which was created, Jason, okay, going back to the early 1900s with Rockefeller and Rothschild money. The African National Congress is a communist, socialist, Maoist front. And Jason, they have destroyed. Jason, I got to say, they have destroyed. And can I say this too, Jason? I'm telling you, the reason why Detroit, Michigan, New York City, Baltimore, East St. Louis, and Los Angeles is destroyed, it's not because of white politicians. It's not because of systemic racism. The reason why these urban cities are destroyed because of decades after decades after decade of Black left-wing Democratic leadership in these cities like Detroit, okay, and Cleveland, in New York, and St. Louis. These Black folk on the left had destroyed these cities. And that's what the African National Congress is doing. There's white genocide right now, Jason. They are decapitating and cutting off the heads of our white brothers and sisters in South Africa, okay? Why? Because you have an evil regime.
Farm murders. I heard about that.
Murders, yes, of the African National Congress. These people had the psyop, okay, of the paradigm, just like Barack Obama, about Saudi Arabia and the paralysis of America. Excellent, excellent show today.
Absolutely, Bishop. And I mean, that's another situation. I don't know anything about it, but I would bet that it's another situation where they simply want to make black people hate white people hate black people, and then they're just at each other's throats. We'll close out, Bishop, with an African Marxist who should be the focus of everyone's attention, Dr. Tedros Adhanom, he's the Director General of the World Health Organization right now, but he has wreaked havoc across the nation of Ethiopia, causing death of many black children with his political manipulations and in his role as the health minister. Good news, Bishop. This week I have sorted out the remaining issues with doing our simulcasts. So many viewers have been enjoying the show today, not only on the Jason Goodman YouTube channel and Crowdsource the Truth too, but at the Global Spiritual Revolution Radio and Media Group YouTube channel. We now have 105 people watching there, in addition to the over 1,000 who are watching us on Crowdsource the Truth channels. And I do want to remind everyone, Bishop, that they can support your global spiritual revolution by going to paypal.me/GSRR Media Group. And it is very important that people support the Bishop and my other co-hosts here on Crowdsource the Truth. I greatly appreciate the sponsors who keep this show going by becoming sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. Don't forget to tune into the Bishop on liferadionj.com/Gaiters or 92.9 FM in the New York and New Jersey area. Bishop will be back next week. This has been an epic show. Thank you, Bishop, for all that great information. We'll see you next week. Have a great night. Actually, I'll see everybody tonight at 8 p.m. for More Pain with Mike Moore. Thank you, Bishop. We'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Great show. Thank you so much, my friend. We see you next Tuesday.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for watching.